Marty Feldman been a key character in something? It's a really common TV show name. Morty Feldman. Morty Feldman. Lord, Lord, Lord. Tried to do a video with a different title. Only ended up with like 300 views. So let's see what happens if I keep my regular show title and if it's just as few people are gonna watch. I don't have access to my other phone right now, so it's I can't be looking things up. But that's okay. I don't need to look things up. Do you guys understand how fucked up this all is? Aren't you tired of it? Tired of it, man. I'm tired of things being the way they are, and it's sort of like it's this is it. Like we've accepted the idea that this is the best of us, and that we just can't get any better, and that the only way we could make the changes is through like some sort of violence or something. Like, we don't need that. Like, I think it would really be telling if if we were to really start this revolution and start saying to the people, hey, okay, are you willing to put down your previous brainwashing beliefs and say that we're all actually just here together, and that everyone is equal, and that we just need to work to make all of our lives better while we're alive, not nearly as worried about what happens after we die? And if those same people, if those people are saying, no, I'm going to keep believing in my thing. Like when it comes to the Jays, right? I absolutely do not suggest that we eliminate them. No. I firmly believe if they want to, on geoengineering, hang on. If they want to be the Jays and live their Jay life and all that, cool.
Don't hurt other people.
Go to Israel. We're going to cut you off from all financial burdens that everyone has. And you guys just get to be your people and see how that works out for you. What's my opinion on geoengineering? I mean, I don't believe we live on a ball flying through space. I believe our narrative is manufactured to begin with. So, geoengineering is something that we've been able to do forever, or they have been able to do forever. Things like chemtrails, again, so much of it is actually really good technology. Chemtrails, HARP, shit like that. If we can prevent hurricanes from hitting the land, even though, like, I wonder if that's like a thing that's supposed to happen. That's how our shit's designed. I don't know. But, like, if we can bring rain where there's a drought, we can use HARP to move the jet stream and then cloud seed and make it rain where there's a drought. Yeah, I think that's a good thing. Whatever vaccine, super serum that they get, because think about it. When was the last time a young, up-and-coming politician with all the potential in the world in his late 40s, early 50s, whatever, when was the last time one of them died? They clearly have something. I mean, when you look at what we're told the AIDS epidemic was in the 80s and early 90s, why weren't rock stars dropping dead left and right? Left and right. If it is what it is, it's from needles and gay sex, then rock stars should have been Like literally, like guys like Elton John. Elton John was a predator. You know, he was a guy that put on that nice face, but used his power to do all kinds of awful things and had
You
his
didn't look
pick.
at him and think creepy. There's something wrong with you.
Right? What? That's not a showman. That's just weird. When it comes to technology, I think of industrial society and its future. If you know what that comes from, are you talking about like Eisenhower quotes and shit? I mean, the issue is, and the problem with someone like you is that you are super smart. You're super well read, and the issue then becomes who's publishing the books we're reading. If you've ever tried to publish a book, you understand that the manuscript you write is not what gets published. And you know, you have to include the J's if you really want anything. You have to. Just to get your book, like publishers won't accept your submission. They call it an unsolicited submission. You have to get yourself a literary agent, which is more than likely a J. Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, right? Isn't that the Unabomber? Or is that, wait, which one's Ted Kaczynski's? Yeah, he's the Unabomber, right?
I think so. One of the Michigan militia.
No.
Michigan, dude.
No, it wasn't. But, you know, the problem with so much of that stuff, like the narratives that we're given, it's like Kanye, right? When Kanye said what he said, and then they took $2 billion from all that.
Is he good or bad?
He's bad.
Oh, he's bad. Okay.
Yeah. I don't follow Kanye. Do you follow Kanye? Do any of you follow Kanye? We wouldn't know what Kanye said if the Jays didn't tell us to focus on it. We wouldn't know that one random tweet that was just a link, didn't even say anything, that Kyrie Irving posted. We wouldn't know. Who would know about that? None of us. I don't agree with everything he said, but he made good points about technology. He made a good point. What's the point? I mean, technology and progression is just it. It's what it is. It's going to happen. Like I say, the chemtrails and HARP and all that. These are positive technologies. It's not the technology that's bad. It's who's in charge of said technology and how that technology is used against us. It's crazy. And then the idea of Ted Kaczynski, we know about Ted Kaczynski because they want us to know about it. It's and we only know what they want us to know. This is the place where I am at. It's gotten to be kind of it's almost the negative. It's almost it's straight. Can I use your phone for 5 minutes or so? I just want to show you guys something real quick. Okay. Tame. Okay. THAMES tunnel. River Thames Tunnel. All right, I want you guys to hear this. This is such an interesting thing. The Thames, it's THAMES. The Thames Tunnel is a tunnel beneath the River Thames in London, connecting Rotherhithe and Wapping. It measures 35 feet wide by 20 feet high and is 1,300 feet long. running at a depth of 75 feet below the river's surface, measuring at high tide.
Oh,
Shush. It is the first tunnel known to have been constructed successfully underneath a navigable river. It was built between, when do you think it was built?
1819.
Right. 1825 and 1843 by Mark Brunel and his son Isambard, using the tunneling shield newly invented by the elder Brunel and Thomas Cochrane. Not only did they build the tunnel, they invented the technology to do it. The tunnel was originally designed for horse-drawn carriages, but was mainly used by pedestrians and became a tourist attraction. In 1869, it was converted into a railway tunnel for use by the East London Line, which, since 2010, is part of the new London Overground Railway Network under the ownership of who gives a shit. History and development, right? Let's do this.
So wait a second. Wait. Logistic.
We're getting there.
75 feet under. So there's only 75 feet of earth between the bottom of the water.
Before the top of the water. The top of the water.
From the.
Said from measuring from the surface at high tide. So it's 75 feet.
Okay, so how deep is the water?
How deep is your love?
Okay, because if there's a foot of earth between the bottom of the water and the top of the tunnel, the water's gonna penetrate that 12 inches.
Shush, just shush.
Makes
The
no
point he
sense.
made was not that tech itself is bad, but it will most likely be used for bad. Well, that's true. You know, that's how they do it. Bro, tweaking again. You know all those tweakers that start reading,
Talking articulately.
right? Reading history. Gotta love it. Can you imagine if that's actually what meth did, was made people read history and question things? Meth would be amazing. At the start of the 19th century, 1800s, they love throwing you off with that. You hear 19th, you think 9, or you think 19. But
That should always throw me nuts.
it does. It's fucking stupid. You have to sit there and, but it's, I mean, it makes sense, you know. Gotta have the aughts. At the start of the 19th century, there was a pressing need for land connection between the north and south banks of the Thames to link the expanding docks on each side of the river. The engineer Ralph Dodd tried but failed to build a tunnel between Gravesend and Tilbury in 1799.
Where was this at?
What do you mean? This is London. This is in Europe. River Thames is like the super famous river.
I just didn't know where it was located because I didn't pay attention to geography.
So I want to see this. Ralph Dodd. I want to see this history of Ralph Dodd. Ralph Dodd was a late 18th century British civil engineer, primarily known for his attempt to produce the first tunnel underneath the Thames River in 1798. He's primarily known for his failure. Boy, that's a good thing, huh? What'd you do? And like, well, that guy failed. Well, I did other things. I succeeded in other ways. I just failed this one time. So what about, we'll pause for a minute. Think about what you think 1799 looked like. Based on what you've been taught, based on what you've been told, based on what you've seen in pictures or, well, paintings, because didn't have pictures. We did and we didn't. We had things like the camera obscura and the magic lantern invented by the guy that made the first submarine, Cornelius Drebbel, supposedly. Cornelius Drebbel could also make it thunder and lightning on command, but whatever. But you have these narratives that are given to us, and you have no choice. If you say you believe like that's it's weird how we do that. How everybody cherry picks, right? So many people will be like, "Oh yeah, 9/11 was an inside job." But Jesus is real. History is real. The same people that told us 9/11 was this, that, and the other, and you don't believe them. You believe them about other things because you like them. But we have these characters that are given to us, and they're just. It's just an alarm. Oh no, I think it's nothing. Life and family. Born in the northeast of England, Ralph Dodd was the second son of Alexander Dodd and had an aptitude for drawing along with his elder brother Robert Dodd. After receiving an education in mechanics, again, think about what you think 1700s look like. We're talking like what university does he goes? You hear about these because especially over in Europe, places like Cambridge exist from like the 1200s and shit supposedly. And I was just thinking like, so are we saying that like people would get on their horses and ride into Cambridge on the dirt roads and whatnot so that they could then park their horses, go inside these magnificent building structures where they would have a class of kids there and they would teach them using, books and shit that were produced by who, and like, how does all of that work? Obviously, if things were a lot more advanced than we're told, yeah, that worked. But given the narrative we're given, they had no electricity, no phones, no communicating through carrier pigeon, as my wife always says. How is all this possible? Received his education in mechanics. Ralph and his brother Robert spent 5.5 years at the Royal Academy schools practicing as a portrait painter. This is the guy that engineered the tunnels. He's built other tunnels. He couldn't build the Thames Tunnel. I guess. I don't know. His older brother Robert is known for his maritime landscapes and works on the French Revolutionary Wars. Right. Dodd had 2 sons, Borodal Robert Dodd and George Dodd, 1780 to 1837, 1783 to 1827. Yeah. The one was born the older was born 3 years before his mother and died 3 years after. Oh, no, 10 years after, sorry.
I'll be down in,
Who both became, both his sons became engineers and pioneers of steam power. It's amazing. That is an amazing family. Can you grab a toilet paper roll, please? His namesake, Ralph Dodd, with an S for some reason, went on to become an engineer and mentor to locomotive engineers George Stephenson, 1781 1848, and relative Isaac Dodds. So their name became Dodds? Why would their name become Dodds? Think about how stupid that is. What makes a name just be changed? Founder of Isaac Dodds and Sons. He has been well documented as an innovator and 3141 on June 3rd, 1801, for a building system that was over 150 years ahead of its time. That's amazingly convenient, isn't it? 150 years ahead of its time. We're not going to talk about what that building system is, or that patent number's not blue or anything, but hey, that's okay. As a high-profile founder and promoter of engineering schemes, particularly in London, England, Dodd generally resigned his tender as engineer within 1 or 2 years of his projects receiving parliamentary approval. He resigned his tender as engineer within 1 to 2 years of his projects receiving parliamentary approval. Most of his schemes went on to be successfully completed by renowned engineers of the day, such as John Rennie and Robert Milan. During his career, Ralph Dodd was known for his flair for publicity and generating public interest, but has been portrayed by some of his detractors, because he had detractors, as a failure due to his general early departure from these companies despite repeated success. In December 1821, he suffered severe burns when the boiler of the paddle steamer Sovereign, 80 feet long, of the river Severn Steam Yacht Company, built by H. Turner. Like, weird, you're throwing in. They love to throw in details that don't matter. And this is something you always have to pay attention to when you're reading about history, right? So, when I say, when they say that it's patent number 3141 for a building system, whatever that is, that was over 150 years ahead of its time. Well, I can't find any information. That's not blue. There's no details about that. However, the Sovereign, the steamship that he was on, well, we know it was 80 feet long, of the river Severn Steam Yacht Company, built by H. Turner, Stoppert, and redesigned on January 30th, 1822, British Naval Archives, registration number BT-10. Like, why would that even be included other than to give you the illusion of false details? So when you leave this narrative, you think it's true because you received a bunch of details. You're not going to remember the details. You're just going to remember if there were details or not. And when there's, really detailed details, you're like, oh, okay, no, this must be real. When the boiler of the paddle steamer Sovereign exploded at Gloucester on her trial run, the damage sustained to the ship was so bad that she was broken up directly. Following the accident, he took advice to go to Shetland for his health, and since he was nearly penniless, he walked there in the middle of winter, uphill both ways.
With no shoes.
No shoes.
No coat.
He died in Cheltenham on April 11th, 1822. So he didn't make it. Having been employed to undertake surveys of canals, coal mines, harbors, and other civil engineering works of the late 18th century.
You should have had a donkey and a rail car.
The late 18th, so now we're talking about the 1700s.
Yep.
And he's doing surveys of the canals, coal mines, and harbors because they were capable of building canals, coal mines, and harbors early in the 1700s. And other civil engineering works for the late 18th century, Dodd turned his attention to tunnels, proposing the first underwater tunnel in the United Kingdom in 1796. The Tynemouth proposal was for a tunnel between North Shields and South Shields, which was inspired by local undersea mining activities in Wylam and Whitehaven, and was based on estimating parameters used for tunnel coatings or costings for the Grand Junction Canal. In 1796, nobody prior to 1796 had even thought to build a tunnel under something, apparently. But he was inspired by local undersea mining activities. What are we talking about? Do you guys not see that like something's wrong here? Think about what you think the 1700s looked like and ask yourself how they were possibly doing undersea mining. Oh, you didn't grab the toilet paper roll. It's okay. Okay. Undersea mining. How do you do under the sea?
They could do it on the moon.
Yeah, but that was 300 years later.
Didn't you see the movie? They used those big Astros with the diamond bits. Come on.
Somebody says aqueducts, right? Aqueducts. I know he's not like with me, but the idea that donkey people who were barely capable of blah blah, they didn't have anything. Yet the one thing they could do was build extraordinary buildings and aqueducts and canals and all that. They just didn't have technology. I mean, it's like, obviously it was there. As far as its age goes, well, again, fuck do we know? We know what they tell us to know. But the narrative that we're given just doesn't work. In 1798, it's like a joke every time I read it. Dodd published his proposal for the building of a tunnel between Gravesend and Tilbury to the great and the good of Kent and Essex.
What big publishing companies existed in 1798?
Well, I mean,
were they handwriting this shit on fucking rice paper?
It says he published his proposal to the, quote, the great and the good of Kent and Essex. What does that even mean? Is he standing out, hear ye? I mean, if you're publishing a proposal, that means, again, it's written down. It's
back then they didn't have printing presses.
It's published and it's distributed. There's multiple copies of it published. You hear this a lot back then. You hear a lot that
is published. I've always wondered that. They just put it with a binding and now you're published. Like, that's such a scam bullshit. You publish your own motherfucking book when you write it and put it in a book form.
Yeah, but good luck. I mean, what are you going to make another copy of it?
It's like insurance. It's a fucking scam.
It's all of it's the same, because it's all given to us by the same fucking piece of shit people. It's funny because it's like everything you say, I always have the same response to it. And that doesn't happen with everything else. Like so many other things, it's because of this, and then you go here, and then you go here, and it's like it's all confusing. But when you just step back and look at it from that one perspective, it's all given to us by the same fucking people. No wonder it's all the same. His prospects for the business played on the military advantages in having a tunnel, as it had long been recognized that there was a need to be able to move troops rapidly between Kent and Essex in the event of a war. Why? Do you understand? Like, we aren't like that. How many of you are like, man, I sure want to get in a war with the people across the street? Don't most of us just sort of want to live our lives, be left alone, be allowed to do what we want to do, not be punished for it, not necessarily infringe on anybody else, just let us do our thing? Isn't that how most of us pretty much want to live? And yet we're told that forever in history, all we did was war because some king wanted more land, and you, like, again, we just don't think about it. So you have your homestead, right? You have your homestead, where you undoubtedly have to, you know, grow all of your own food. I mean, how are you going to eat? You know, you have this homestead that's what I believe to be like a mud hut with a thatch roof and shit. I don't, turns out they all lived in mansions and shit, but these people have their homesteads. They have their 10 children because there's no birth control and they've been with their 13-year-old wife for fucking 12 years. You know, she's got to be pregnant every year. But suddenly, like, the king decides he wants more land in an area that you've probably never even heard of. You know? Like, you have to think the average person's life back then existed of, their little homestead, and then maybe they'd go to town for church or some shit. But they didn't go on extravagant trips and, well, the average person didn't. Apparently, like Ben Franklin and shit was traveling all over the world, and the rich and powerful were just all over the place. Just they were just they had the means, the tech, and the resources to be able to just go from here to there, no problem. But I guess a note comes to your house, or like a regal group of clergy. Hear ye! We doth declare that all the men, all of the males of this house shall meet on June 3rd in the square to be ready for war for the king. And then, so the people would then what? Leave their homesteads. That's what you're saying yes, like that's what, but that's just what you have to believe. The people leave their homesteads, their wives, and all their children, and they then march like they're not trained soldiers or anything. So what do they march back to the king's place, where they're then fitted for armor that is then made for them, while weapons are made for them, and and they're I mean, come the fuck on. Then they march to where now remember, somebody has to feed all these people. The peasants who provide the food are now the army. So where the food's coming from, who knows? But they then go fight whatever fight it is, and if they survive it, they just go back to their homestead and pick right back up and go back to work. And really,
the draft was modern day. That.
Yeah, but that's modern day. That's technology.
But they still willingly left their homes, and it was under the
they were.
guise
It
of
wasn't
being,
willing. It was
being arrested.
Right.
But I'm sure that existed back then too. If you don't comply, you will be killed. Or
right, but the problem in thinking that way is that you're just tainting this historical narrative with your modern day existence. It's so hard for us to try to think about what these people had nothing. You could have your little homestead out in the middle of nowhere. How did they know if you showed up? And then again, they're what? They're fitting all these guys with their armor, with their shit. There's blacksmiths. They're just, I mean, the amount of logistics that would just go into it, all the food that has to be prepared and maintained. Then as they're marching to wherever war place they're going to go to, they have to sleep. They have to, they have to eat along the way. I mean, all of these, you never see movies or anything about those kind of logistics. Every movie is like, we're going to war, and then they're at war. Nobody's talking about all those preparations that would be necessary and who's in charge of that, and then just assuming that all of the men they're just manly men and capable of we're all fucking expert sword fighters, and these are farmers. These are farmers.
Strong and in shape and fit. Yes.
Doesn't mean they know how to fight. Fighting is a whole different thing. Killing is a whole different thing. It's just it's a tremendous leap to think that without technology we were still able to do this. So I'm going way off from where I want to be talking about, and I'm just going to go back to the times, whatever, history and development. Okay. Between 1805, but see, like again, you're so willing to look at how I'm not knocking you. Please don't take it that way. That you're willing to look at how ridiculous this element of it is, but not this one. And it's all the same narrative. It's the same people giving us these dumb stories, these chat GPT narratives where most of it is yada yada because they just don't even bother. Like you think about that. These people have to all be measured. They have to be fit with these clothes. Like it's just insane to think about what it would take to create an army of, and we're talking about a king, like a not even a king, or even like a lord of a land or whatever. These are it's really wild. I don't know, it's really wild. It's wild. Between 1805 and 1809, and see, the other part is I don't fucking know. I don't have the answers to these things. All I know is that to me, with my dumbass 2024 brain, I hear these things and they don't make sense. I can't fucking picture it. I can't understand, and I have too many questions that always go unanswered. Okay. Between 1805 and 1809, a group of Cornish miners, including Richard Dick, we'll call him Dick, tried to dig a tunnel further upriver between Rotherthine and Rapping Limehouse, but failed because of the difficult conditions of the ground. Yeah, you'd think. I mean, you ever been to the beach as a kid and like I'm gonna dig a tunnel, and you try to dig a tunnel and it literally you can't get like 3 inches in. It just keeps falling down.
Filling with water.
Right.
Now, I know you can go below the water table. I get that. But to build a tunnel that the roof doesn't collapse down on because the water's slowly making its way, through the earth, it just, that sounds unlikely. Now I get there's going to be anomalies where there's, areas of clay beneath the water surface that could act as a sort of waterproof barrier and maybe keep the roof from collapsing. But that doesn't exist all over in all of these areas that they have these tunnels. And
to
miles,
know that it does, right, to know, how would you even know? They hit a little bit of clay. How do you know it's going to be clay 30 feet later?
had to.
Right. All right.
How thick is it? How long would it be before it's,
Well, exactly here.
With water?
They failed because of the difficult conditions. We're also talking about a place where they get winter. So it's always a yada yada. And that too with the armies and all that shit. We're talking, I mean, you said it yesterday. How did anyone even live in Minnesota?
Without fucking heat, without cars.
Modern day convenience.
Your horse is going to freeze to death walking you, pulling your carriage.
It's just it's what it is. When it's 20, 30 below,
with the wind chill making it feel like 60 below,
you can't go outside. They close schools down and shit for that. But we're supposed to believe that people just existed and they were building and they were constructing and
even worse, there were reservations with tribes of Native Americans that lived there from Minnesota. Bullshit.
Well, teepees can be really warm on the inside.
You don't give a fuck. You put your horses and your livestock in a teepee?
It just doesn't make sense.
You
okay.
peeing in that teepee? Shitting in that teepee? Because you're not going to be able to bend over the fucking snow taking a shit without your asshole freezing. Not in those conditions.
And quickly, not it's quick.
No,
It's almost instantaneous.
frostbite. Your
Yeah.
shit's going to have to be cut off. Your butt cheeks.
And then how did you deal with frostbite back then?
Right.
The Cornish miners were used to hard rock and did not modify their methods for soft clay and quicksand. Quicksand. How do you know you're not gonna? How do you know? How did they know how deep the river was the whole way across? I mean, I guess they dropped a line down.
Digging and digging.
No, they in a boat and dropped the line down.
Well, but the topography isn't flat like a pool.
You would think, how deep does water go in a river? How far down does the water actually penetrate the ground? And then how does the ground hold that weight?
So, do we have those numbers? You said 75 feet.
Well, we're going to find out. Let's see.
Surface, but we don't know how deep that is to take away from that 75 feet to see what we're left with of Earth.
This Thames Archway project, Thames Archway. The Thames Archway Company was a company formed in 1805 to build the first tunnel under the Thames River in London. The development of docks on both sides of the river around the Isle of Dogs indicated that a river crossing of some kind was needed, right? And we didn't know how to build fucking bridges back then, right? We didn't know how to build suspension bridges. We needed that guy in Pennsylvania.
That happened in 1813 or some shit?
1883, I believe. Around the 1880s. I don't remember. There's just so much of it.
So if you look at that, it makes more sense to go underneath than over.
Why didn't we?
You already have boats. So it's going to be easier to go underneath it than over it when you don't even know how deep it is.
I mean, how do you build,
That doesn't seem logical.
So like out in California and shit, there's wharfs, and all over the place there are these wharfs where these wharfs where the docks go way out.
Okay.
How were they building those way back then? Like, what were they using to put the pillars deep down into the ocean bed, riverbed? How were they doing all of this with nothing? We're talking about people that had nothing as far as we're told. I mean,
scuba gear to even get down there far enough to see.
I mean, again, this dude was supposedly inspired by undersea mining efforts. When I hear undersea mining, I think like they're going down to the bottom of the water and then digging deep down and mining in something, right? Isn't that what undersea mining is? And I don't know how you would dig down in the water without the hole filling up, but how would you even go down in the water back then? What were they using to go down in water back then?
Apparatus-wise.
Right. How were they doing that? But then we're told that they made that they had that submarine, that one submarine that they had in 1850 that was capable of going down 150.
1803 or whatever the fuck this is.
1850 it was able to go. Was it 150 feet down or 300 feet down? I'm going to be conservative and say 150 feet down. And then when they could go down, they could open a hatch on the bottom because it was so perfectly pressurized inside that they could open a hatch and harvest oysters and shit from the bottom of the sea. They could. Who says, okay, open the hatch? No, we'll be safe. And everybody goes, oh, are you sure? I mean, how do they even see? It's 1850. They're 150 feet down in the water.
Can't light a match.
What are you using for light? And your tiny little submarine. Like, it's just our narratives are stupid. And when you
Maybe had night vision goggles.
When you understand, like, it's weird because it never made sense to me. But I didn't have a solution. The solution was always that it was just a bunch of dumb, rich J kids who were told to write the narrative for this, that, and the other. But there's a lot of narrative have been written in that regard. But now that we, the Goyim, know that Chat GPT exists, I mean that's not going to be the first incarnation of it or anything. To know that all you got to do is put in some parameters and the computer will generate the narrative for you. Oh, okay. Now it makes sense. Now it makes sense why there are so many characters of the same names. Why the further you go back, the less variations you get, and the more you get like these polymaths who could do everything, the Ben Franklins of the world. You know, it's because of the narrative. If you look at the narratives Chat GPT will give you now, it has those same sort of holes. You know, and so much of this they relied on us not knowing. Understand that prior to that person was flying.
Yes. No stop, right?
No, God, no. Prior to right now, basically, the only information you were allowed to have was the stuff that was like maybe in the government provided library. You just didn't. Right.
That was supposed to be your most accurate, detailed source of information.
I don't think when they did a lot of this shit, they thought they were going to be able to keep it from us. They didn't think about what happens when the Goyim figures this shit out. Or if they did, they thought, well, we control them enough anyway, it won't matter. But I don't think they thought that one day Guy Williams would be able to have an audience of 100+ people and read the narrative that we're supposed to know. This isn't the conspiracy narrative. This is the shit they want you to know. And instead of reading it like, oh, God bless the Queen and our governments and everything they tell us is true, or I need to copy this as exactly as I can while changing it up so I don't get plagiarism because I want a good grade. They never expected us to look at it skeptically. And when you look at it, even with just like a touch of skepticism, it starts to fall apart. Like I mean, it's not like my wife or I want this to be the way it is. If we could just go, you know what, sweetheart, God is with us. We are united in Christ, and when we die, we'll be in heaven together, and let's just follow the rules and do what we say, and everything will work out really well if we just shut up and go to church. Like, I'm sure we both do that. I would. If you could guarantee me that everything will get better and that I won't give a shit about things like genocide anymore, as long as it doesn't include me, then you know what? I'd take it, because this is a heavy weight. It's a heavy burden, self-imposed burden. When COVID hit, I felt fucking bad. I felt like a failure. Like, fuck, I should have been able to at least.
Nobody would have believed it. Nobody wants to hear it or think about something as awful as that. If you would have tried telling people the country's going to be locked down, a lot of you that own small businesses are going to lose your shit, then lose your houses, get divorced. Nobody would believe you.
If I was in the position.
Had you see what I sent you with the patents?
That's old shit. If I was in a position, if I had figured out a way to get there, they would.
But you're not allowed to.
Well, but
you're not going to be allowed to.
I still feel like I should have. I feel guilty. I should have fucking done something. I should have done more.
I can imagine there have been lots of people like you.
Exactly.
But we're willing to do it undercover just to get, play the game to get the power and the fame enough to do that. But by the time they get there, they realize, well, if I go through with what my initial intent was, I'm going to lose all this. And I kind of really like all this.
Of course.
So, fuck it.
Of course. I mean, there are times when I look at the comment section and I just go, why am I fighting for you, piece of shit? I'm fighting for you just as much as I'm fighting for me. But at the end of the day, I have children. I'll have grandchildren. And so on and so on. And if I don't do it, who will? It's it's like the MLK bullshit. If MLK hadn't been willing to do what he did, well, maybe things would have been different if you believe the narrative we're given. I don't, but
And then if you pose that same question to his children, I'd be very interested to see what those are.
Of course they're proud of him. Of course they absolutely.
Would they rather have him here, though? I would guarantee that would be yes.
Probably not, because of the freedoms that they now enjoy that are associated with him. I mean, obviously, everybody'd rather have it be a certain way, this, that, and the other, but sometimes it's just what it takes. And, I don't cross that bridge when we get there, but I just can't do it. I just can't. We talked about it yesterday. How do I do it? How do you, like there are, I know they're not my kids, right? They're not. I don't have any I don't even know them. But there are children consistently being violated by disgusting Jays in Hollywood. And right now, our system is telling us that we should be focused on Diddy. Everybody look at Diddy, 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 Diddy.
Okay, so look at all of the people that chose to associate them.
We don't do that. I mean, Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison right now, supposedly, for trafficking. And yet, how do you
part of a posh prison? You mean?
How do you traffic to no one? You can't be trafficking if there's no one to traffic to. So where are all the people that she trafficked to getting in prison? That's the thing is like they give us these narratives, and I can't exist in my society without my kids saying Diddy, all kinds. It's everywhere. And the last thing I want to do is stick my head in the sand and say, oh well, it has nothing to do with me, so I don't care. I'm not that person. I can't do that. Would you do that if you saw it happening across the street? No. So why would you do it if it's happening across the country? It's the same fucking thing. We have to stand up and fight. And this distraction of Diddy, I mean, I told you with Kanye.
If they expose Diddy, that will help the overall picture of what you're talking about. But
no, they don't. No.
Just one of the 8 legs, or whatever.
Right, one of the tentacles.
One of the tentacles. That's it. And
right, unless we follow that tentacle up. Unless we go, okay, so what's the tentacle connected to? And instead of going like sideways and looking at the other tentacles, we need to go up and say, well, where did Diddy get to be Diddy from? I mean, we laughed about it yesterday. Like, Diddy was the guy that was supposedly the party host. Diddy was the guy that had all the crazy parties. So they basically were like, hey, look, you're the man. Look at how much you're the man. You have the best parties. Let's go do all our disgusting shit at your house.
Fucking sick.
And Diddy, being some dumbass, didn't see it and was like, okay, you promise I won't get in trouble? Yeah, we promise.
Shit, look, we're all here. It's not just you.
Don't you think if we were going to get in trouble, we'd have gotten in trouble by now? We've been doing this forever.
We own the police. We own the judicial system.
Exactly.
Are we going to get ourselves in trouble? No, you're good.
Exactly.
shit gets exposed. Oh, it's the black man, the non-Jewish black man.
There you go. That's what they do. That's how that works. He's Lee Harvey Diddy.
It's the Christian black man. Angry black man.
And it's the guy that we've all known. It's the guy that was talking about wrestling with Usher for over the Cheerios and shit. Like these are
Is he the one that no, that was Master P that drove through the country and sold his albums out of his trunk.
Yeah, he didn't even drive through the country. He just did it in New Orleans. But there are plenty of videos that show Diddy hanging out with Justin Bieber. Why do we all see that and go, that's cool?
I see a child with a grown man.
Bieber was like 14, 15, 12, something, I don't know. And Diddy's like late 30s or something. What are we doing there? Why are we like, oh, I'm so surprised. But these stories have always been there and you've just ignored them.
What happened to Corey Feldman? Where the fuck did he go?
Disappeared.
He disappeared.
He didn't disappear. He's now a musician making crazy bad songs and going around getting to live out his rock star fantasy. Singing these terrible songs. But these stories, so you're me, right? Except you're young and naive. 18, 19, 20, and you're struggling and you've lived struggle your whole life. You're poor. I mean, I was watching Benzino got arrested again the other day. And of course, it's like, why is Benzino's body camera footage always immediately available? Who's doing that? Why is that okay? But, so I couldn't remember. Like, I was like, what songs did Benzino have? Somebody wrote in a comment, Benzino's had more arrest videos than music videos. So I looked up Benzino songs.
I've never even heard of him.
And I'm like, I look back on early 2000s rap. I mean, just rap in general. If you look back on it now, these are dumb clowns in zoot suits, modern day zoot suits. And it's obviously a joke to the J's at the top. And they just laugh. Like, go look at Jules Santana. This guy has on a bandana and a hat. His clothes are like, there's a guy on YouTube called the Time Traveler from 2025. Shit's fucking hilarious. Nelly with the Band-Aid on and shit. You look at these clowns that we were presented as gangsters. These are the gangsters. It's all just this dumb clown show. Those guys aren't. Benzino.
I remember seeing, the different videos and the different rap. Well, what the fuck are they wearing?
Right. Oh,
But I mean, and equally the same when I saw bands like Kiss. What the fuck are you wearing?
Kiss.
Motley Crue.
You can understand why Kiss is what Kiss is, because he's a stupid J, man. Gene Simmons is disgusting. He's a high-ranking J. And he has, but what, when you look at like what black people were allowed to achieve success, they didn't just achieve success. You couldn't be a black guy who walked around in a suit and you were a rapper. You have to be, I got on clothes that are 5 times the size. I got sweatbands on. I got a head like
colored, like obnoxious.
They
chains and glitter.
Tattoos on your face. God. Yeah, get a bunch of tattoos on your face. Bet you're gonna get a good job there. Like the way that they when you look at the history of rap, and you look at how this thing was manufactured to fill up the prisons, to create this yoga mentality. You know, Tupac, I'd rather be an Nigga so I can get drunk and smoke weed all day.
The thing is, like, for somebody from my generation, the Gen X's, that
We
I
lived it.
was born in Detroit and lived there till I was 7. All of my friends back then were, the black kids from the neighborhood. They all had parents. I never saw any of them dress or act like that. So then you suddenly see it. I got moved out to the white communities, you know, and then that shit starts coming out, the rap and the groups. And I'm looking at, like, it was very confusing internally because.
Really? Can you imagine what it was like to be a halfie?
No, I couldn't even imagine what it would be to be a black person. Seeing that, like, okay, well, none of that's happening
You
in
notice
the
how she
neighborhood.
lowers her voice. A black person.
Well, I'm.
It's how we're programmed. It's a
But
program.
I was confused. Like, that didn't look like any black people I knew and was friends with and
I
neighbors of.
I always tell you guys, go look up. There's a video documentary that was made in Sing Sing in like '83 or something like that. And if other than the black guys that talk like this man, you know, like the Sanford and Son
Never
clowns.
encountered one of them living in Detroit.
Yo, brother. No, brother. They didn't say brother yet. But you don't hear that. You turn if you don't watch it and you just listen, you won't be able to tell the difference between the white guys and the black guys. Nobody's talking about, yo, my mother's brother came down the street and she was strong, dog. Like you can.
God, no, none of our black neighbors.
I got my hair cut.
We
And
had neighbors from the back hills of Arkansas. Arkansas or Alabama, I think it was Arkansas. Um, Black folks, and they, other than a southern accent, and he was from like the fucking.
But see
sticks,
that's
the
also
fourth
manufactured. That's what people don't understand.
Well, his southern accent wasn't like hee-haw southern
Right.
accent, but he had a drawl.
That whole redneck personality is manufactured. We have neighbors where this guy, he was called Jim Bob. That was his nickname. It wasn't his real name. But that was his nickname. And Jim Bob had like a southern accent. Jim Bob was from fucking here.
Well, he grew up in the ghetto.
Right. He grew up in the hood. He didn't grow up around anybody talking like this.
But he was also like the only white kid in the black school that he went to.
Which you would assume he would assimilate like PMP style.
He got the shit beat out of him all the time.
Supposedly bullshit. He probably got the shit beat out of him because of the things he did and said. But that redneck, people with this weird southern accent and all that, that's a creation. You guys, white people, you should be just as pissed. Just as pissed as black people should be at what the Jays gave us as far as our cultures.
But yet now you drive through the hood, and that's all you see are the fucking outfits and the stupid clown shit that they're trying to mimic.
Of course.
That they've been given.
But that's what we always do.
Disgusting, the programming that's occurred.
They've known that forever. So again, like country music. So when country music was first sort of like hillbilly country music, when that shit first started to gain popularity, there were radio stations in the South that could broadcast across the entire country somehow. Somehow, back then, radio towers could broadcast across the country in the early 1900s and shit. So this sort of hillbilly thing started to take off because it's cool music. If you listen to banjos and they really get going, that shit's amazing. And what would happen is these classically trained musicians from New York couldn't make the money they wanted to make. So they would come down to the South so they could play this hillbilly music. Because if you look at it, it's all the same shit. The only difference is the banjo's added. But, the fiddle and all that shit, that's all classic shit. And they would come down and they would try to get, signed or whatever to be a group down in the South. And the Jays that own the shit would say, okay, you're good musicians, but you're going to have to put some black on your teeth, and you're gonna have to wear some overalls, and your new name's Chucky B, and your new name's Chucky D, and you know, and you're gonna be the Back Hills Bottom Buck Boys or something like that. And then they would have to go out there and they would be putting on this performance. And the redneck thing, I mean, Hee Haw is the longest running, or one of the longest running sketch comedy shows of all time, or some shit like that. It has like a lot of distinctions. Hee Haw is a bunch of Jays pretending to be dumb rednecks.
You mean to tell me that everybody south of the fucking Mason-Dixon line suddenly they're all stupid? They're all dumb. Really? How does that work? So that if you step over the line, you suddenly get intelligence? Or if you fuck somebody that lives across the line and you have a baby, do they get the intelligence? How does that work?
These are just narratives that they've given to divide us. You know, the redneck is this, I mean, if you even look at country music today, it's clearly influenced by rap now.
Well,
I got my big truck,
so
and it's got these beats and you know,
people that live in the back hills, the sticks, you know, whatever you want to call it, have the educational opportunities, the career opportunities, blah blah, blah, you know, kind of segregated and kind of cut off from the real world. How does that differ at all from the projects that don't have,
because they're not in danger. Yeah, but they're not in danger. It's completely different. Nothing in the United States is worse than the projects. Now, you can go around the world and you're going to find favelas and shit like that are way worse. But the projects, you can't, it's so bad you can't imagine it.
But we demonize the projects and we don't demonize the sticks. We don't throw liquor corners up or liquor stores up. The sticks.
Yeah, but they,
you know,
they make their own. Right. But that's part of the, it's all part of these keeping us it's like just the idea of you being proud to be from the South and us Northerners. It's the us versus them mentality that exists in every way they can foster it, so that we're always fighting each other. So we're supposed to argue because your parents had sex below the Mason-Dixon line and my parents had sex above it. So now I'm a Northerner and you're a Southerner.
Ultimately, when you say that, all you're saying is, because the big beef between the North and the South is the South wanted to continue to have slaves. So all you're saying is that you're a racist piece of shit.
Well, but see, yeah, well, like, if
break it down to the most simple form.
For sure, because if you ask most people, it's heritage, not hate. Like, then give me something else.
Okay, so what else was good about it besides you owned slaves?
Well, you didn't. The thing is, and this is according to the narrative we are given.
Which, you know, we have to stay on that same track, otherwise
Right. Only 1% of the population was rich enough to own slaves. So just like over in Europe and all these other things, somehow these slave owners wanted to continue to own slaves and made themselves like generals and shit like that. And they somehow just convinced all these mountain folk who don't even want to be bothered by anyone to come on out of the hills and fight to the death so that they could continue to own slaves. That's the narrative you're given.
You see movies like The Help. Those people weren't the top.
You see what?
Movies like The Help.
You see movies.
Well, sure.
Right, of course, it's movies. They want to normalize it more. Everyday people did not own slaves. 1% of the population was rich enough to own slaves, according to the narrative. You know, and that's...
Women were getting like 75 cents a day.
That's a lot of money back then. I mean, it's just... I've spent a lot of my life looking into the shit. And it's always not sat right. You know, when you understand that according to the narrative, there's only one time that blacks truly revolted against slavery, and so the one plantation, it's a family of whites, 50, 100 slaves, whatever. Some point the slaves say, "Fuck it, hey, there's a lot of us. It's only a couple of them, and yeah, they got guns, but those guns take 10 minutes to load. So one of you might get shot if they can hit you with it. But let's just go get them." So they do. They take over the plantation. They then, because they're black, they march down the way to the next plantation, singing and a dancing, singing and a dancing. Everybody knows the moves. They take over that plantation, and then same story. And now they're now double in size. Now they're going down. It's either it's everything is always the narrative of three things. So it's either they take over the third plantation, or they're on their way to the third plantation. And it's either they take over the third and it's on the way to the fourth, or it's on the way to the third. I can't remember. But on the way, they like come around the bend, and the U.S. military has assembled, and they're standing there, and the blacks go, "Oh lordy, lordy," and drop all the weapons and give up and go back to being slaves. That's the one time that happened.
What year was that?
I don't remember. And you think like, I mean, again, I'm supposed to believe that the Native Americans just kept trusting the white people. Yeah, no, I know. We said that the line was here, but we're going to need like another couple 100 miles. So if you could just pack up and move, promise this is the last time. Like, how many times are they going to do it? They say that there's as many as 100 million Native Americans in the Americas at the time when white people invaded. And in all of those years, the natives just couldn't fucking muster up enough numbers to overtake the whites with their, buckshot guns. And I mean, just come on. It's bullshit, man. It's all bullshit. So went way off. Thames Archway Company formed in 18 built the melon on the docks on both sides of the river on the Isle of Dogs indicated that a river crossing of some kind was needed. A tunnel from Rotherhine to Limehouse was suggested in about 1803, in which the Northbryan engineer Robert Vasey became involved. His name is red because if you click on it, a page hasn't been made for him yet. Lots of names exist that aren't highlighted, but they always do this where they put like somebody's name in red, and you click on it, and they want you to create the page. What? How am I going to create the page about this guy? An act of parliament was obtained on July 12, 1805, which enabled the Thames Archway Company to start construction. The idea was to bore a pilot tunnel or driftway starting from a shaft to be sunk in Rotherhine, i.e., from the south bank. Bore a pilot tunnel or driftway starting from a shaft to be sunk in Rotherhine. The driftway was supposed to drain the surrounding bedrock and then be enlarged into a full brick-arched tunnel, which would accommodate two-way vehicular traffic. Unfortunately, the firm Strata anticipated were mostly sand and gravel. The strata anticipated were mostly sand and gravel with pockets of quicksand. After a year, how did they fucking know? After a year, Vasey had only driven a shaft 12.8 meters deep and money was running out. 42 feet. He had only driven it 42 feet. And I still don't understand. What do you mean driven a shaft?
Driven it into the ground.
Yeah, but what do you mean by this shaft that was sunk into the land? That whole
They had hamsters running on a wheel to turn it, and just kept whipping them to go faster.
in 1807, the directors of the company brought in Richard Dick, remember Dick from the other thing, Trevicik or something, who agreed to take the driftway across the river for a success fee of $1,000, employing Cornish. I think it's lira. I don't even know what that fucking symbol is. Maybe 1,000 pounds. Is that what pounds are? I don't know. Upside down L with a 2 bottom. Is that with an upside down LF with a 2? It's a weird symbol. Who decided that would be the symbol? Who decided the S with the 2 lines would be our money symbol? Wonder what those symbols really are. I mean, they're probably not new. Nothing really is. You know, my wife just discovered the swastika was a swastik in Indian and Hindi or whatever, and it's a symbol for karma. Employing Cornish miners to dig a 30 horsepower steam in, employing Cornish miners to dig and a 30 horsepower steam engine to pump, he eventually succeeded in making the driftway 303 meters, 1,027 feet from the Rotherhithe shaft. He had tunneled under the Thames, albeit only beyond the low water mark. This was the first time that anyone had made a tunnel pass underneath the actual water of any river. I still don't really get it. Like I really would have to see it because reading it isn't doing it for me. I can't picture what they're saying. However, it remained to complete the excavation under the high water mark, and this Trevicek was unable to do owing to breakthroughs of quicksand. I just so they could do it when the water was at low tide, but then when it was at high tide, it was a problem. But doesn't that happen every day?
Yeah.
Twice a day.
I thought it was twice a day. Now it changes how far it comes up depending on where the moon cycle is, supposedly.
The failure of the Thames Archway project led engineers to conclude that an underground tunnel is impractical because they couldn't do it at high. I mean, what? About 40 years later, Mark Isambard, Brunel, and Isambard Kingdom Brunel built the Thames Tunnel about half a mile upstream. All right, we're back to it. I'm sorry for doing this. I'll be done in a minute. The Thames Archway National Pilot Tunnel, a driftway, flooded twice when 1,000 feet of a total of 1,200 feet had been dug. They got 200 feet from conclusion and were like, fuck it. It only measured 2 to 3 feet by 5 feet.
Wow, that was little.
And was intended as a drain for a larger tunnel passage tunnel for passenger use. I just don't get it. The failure of the Thames Archway project led engineers to conclude that an underground tunnel is impractical. That's weird. The Anglo-French engineer Marc Brunel refused to accept this conclusion. No, I can do it. In 1814, he proposed to Emperor Alex I of Russia a plan to build a tunnel under the river Neva in St. Petersburg. 1814, dude in France is familiar with the rivers and shit in St. Petersburg, Russia.
Anglo-French. Okay?
Oh,
He
that
is multinational.
he was in France.
But he's also Anglo. So
I
he
I
knows
mean,
things.
just
He is
just
also a hairdresser, an
but just
engineer,
mathematician.
a mathematician,
Uh,
and
uh,
a geographer.
yeah. Okay, so in 1814, he knows about the rivers in St. Petersburg.
He rescues cats
Comes up with some sort of design, and then sends it to the Emperor Alexander of Russia.
with the fudge he makes.
And the Emperor of Russia saw it and was like, no. And then sent it back to him. And he was like, oh, sweet, I got a package. And he opens it. He's like, he said, no. Like,
But he crocheted me some beautiful stockings.
he sent me one of those dolls with a bunch of dolls in it. The scheme was turned down. A bridge was built instead. Of course. Not a suspension bridge, though.
Well, no,
Because
just a bridge.
a suspension bridge wasn't invented till much later. And back then, they just used to build giant pillars into the middle of the
Like I
water.
said, why would you look at that ever and say, let's go under rather than over first?
Because building, how do you build the big
You have a
fucking,
boat you can float on and use as your ladder
what do you drop in the rock? Okay,
from the boat like an anchor.
drop it. All right, and then you're dropping them exactly. Okay, oh, that one missed by a couple of feet. What do you swim down?
And fix it. Yes.
Yes, that
I mean,
makes
that's
total
easier than
sense.
digging underwater. Come on. We dig under this thing. I don't know how deep it goes. And every time I try to dig, my hole fills with water. But let's just keep trying.
If I just start from back a little
Oh
further,
my God.
I'm digging too close. I'm just gonna go back
Right.
and then dig through
That's
underground.
way fucking harder than a fucking bridge.
Give me my pickaxe.
Right.
You grab a
You have
shovel.
some donkeys
Okay,
that can help.
so I'm gonna pick all the shit, and then you get the shovel and spoon it out as we're going. Brunel
I just can't.
Brunel patented the tunneling shield. Well, there you go. That's how he did it.
Fuck is a tunneling shield?
Let's
That's
find out.
stupid.
A tunneling shield is a protective structure used during the excavation of large human-made tunnels. Duh. When excavating through ground that is soft, liquid, or otherwise unstable, there is a potential for health and safety. There's a potential health and safety hazard to workers and the project itself from falling materials or a cave-in.
Okay.
A tunneling shield can be used as a temporary support structure. It is usually in place for the short term from when the tunnel section is excavated until it can be lined with a permanent support structure. Duh.
Made of what? How do they put it in place? How do they hold it there? Is there a crane that keeps it there? Like,
The permanent structure may be made up of, depending on the period, bricks. No, you gotta get your details. Bricks, concrete, cast iron, or steel. Although modern shields are commonly cylindrical, the first shield, designed by Marquis Lombard Brunel, was actually a large rectangular scaffold-like iron structure with 3 levels and 12 sections per level, with a solid load-bearing top surface.
what?
The structure the structure protected the men from cave-ins as they labored within it, digging the tunnel out from in front of the shield.
They didn't have the machinery to do
If you're
that.
digging it out from in front of the shield, then you're still liable to get cave-ins. Oh, a picture, you say? Oh my god.
Okay, so.
Here, let me see.
Okay, so this is the tunneling shield, right? How'd they do this? Because the tunneling shield is
That's what I just said.
is supporting them for all of this.
Right.
Right?
It's
Da, da,
they
da.
dig in
Okay.
front of the shield. So what's the point of the
Down.
fucking shield?
Down just so they could have scaffolding to stand on.
And this is moved every foot or so that they're digging, right?
So then they
Here you
have to
go.
rebuild a floor to continue. I don't. No.
And it's all done by torches. One dude's holding a torch. He's the light holder
Do they
guy.
know that fire eats oxygen
No.
and you need to breathe oxygen?
I mean, this is just
That makes sense.
look at this. Look at this shit. And what are these little spiky things? And how are they moving this, as she said? As they're going, how are they advancing this thing forward?
How is this shit not caving in on them on the other side?
That's what I want to know. The structure protected. Okay. The tunneling shield used for the construction of the something in Taiwan. That's the modern day thing, and it has a drill on it. Like so, it's drilling, and it's shielding as it's drilling. That makes sense. But these guys were doing it out in front of it. The first successful rectangular tunneling shield was developed by Mark Isambard Brunel and patented by him and Lord Cochrane in January of 1818. In January of 1818. It must be really nice in that part of
Germany?
France?
No, isn't that the...
No. No, this is in France, I believe. Brunel and his son Isambard Kingdom. You think black people name their kids stupid things? Brunel. The tunneling began. Sorry. Brunel and his son Isambard used it to excavate the Thames Tunnel beginning in 1825, though the tunnel was not opened until 1843. Brunel is said to have been inspired in his design by the shell of the shipworm. Oh, good God. Sweetheart? Brunel is said to have been inspired in his design by the shell of the shipworm, a mollusk whose efficiency at boring through submerged timber he observed while working in a shipyard.
A mollusk that he
So-
observed working in a shipyard.
Yeah, when he was learning his engineering.
That's more believable than the picture you just showed me, I guess. I'll get going in a second.
Sorry, guys, hang on.
Can you hand me those pink fuzzy pants in the tire, please? I'll take the blanket off. Yep, in the back.
I know. Got that knee thing going. All right. The ship was built by Maudslay, Sons and Field of Lambeth, London, who also built the steam pumps for dewatering the tunnel. Good thing they had this company who knew how to build the thing they like. What? So the guy designs it, sends it to Maudslay, Sons and Field in Lambeth, London. and they just build that shit. That's how that works. They also just happen to build steam pumps for dewatering the tunnel. Fuck yeah. In 1840, Alfred Eli Beach, editor of Scientific American Journal, was the first to suggest a circular design would be superior to Brunel's rectangular design. It took 30 fucking years for somebody to be like, hey, yeah, might be easier. So that's it. We're just yada yada fast forwarding now. In 1968, Beach built a circular shield. Fuck yeah. The editor of Scientific American Journal also builds fucking shielding for tunnel design. All right, let's do this.
They had several animal shelters as well, and an ice cream cone business.
And
Oh, come on. Don't be ridiculous. All right, maybe some jewelry stores.
Brunel patented the tunneling shield, a revolutionary advance in tunneling technology, in January 1818. So prior to that, nobody had ever thought. I mean, we're building tunnels, right? Where were we building tunnels? Oh, we were building tunnels all over we were able to build tunnels all underground everywhere.
They did them in the mountains.
And this is like.
They built tunnels through mountains.
Right. Oh, I love that idea. I just love that idea.
I mean, they're gorgeous. Driving through them is amazing. But
right.
How the fuck? And how did you know that mountain wasn't going to fall? Is it a weight-bearing section of the mountain? Like, how the... What?
Building tunnels through mountains. Using dynamite.
No, tunnel shields. Duh.
I mean... It's all just... And when you look at it, the history of it all is this yada yada.
Underwater.
Yeah, sort of. Mountains
That's
is pretty.
Land. You could put a hole in, I guess. But underwater?
Underwater is fucking stupid. And to think, like, how far would you have to start back to be able to have the grade not be too steep?
Taking the fucking tunnel to Canada scares the piss out of me. I've never liked it.
Well, especially because there's always leaks.
Right.
There's literally always leaks.
You always see water coming in. And that's solid. That's not sand or bottom of a river.
This is 1820s. By 1860s, there were tunnel systems all throughout Chicago underneath all the skyscrapers and shit. Subway systems and
Never mind earthquakes; those aren't going to affect anything.
Well, they didn't think like I'm telling you. If you look up the history of earthquakes, hurricanes, tornadoes, all that shit, it's there's not a big history of it, and you just kind of think like I mean we're keeping details of the blah blah and the blue blue. But big ass storms that wiped out everything and got fingers coming down and the earth fucking shaking and shit. People just weren't writing about that. Are you crazy? In 1820, it just seems so stupid. Every time I say the date and I understand that I'm talking about building tunnels under fucking rivers. What? In 1823, Brunel produced a plan for a tunnel between Rotherhithe and Rapping, which would be dug using his new shield. Financing was soon found from private investors, including the Duke of Wellington, and a Thames Tunnel Company was formed in 1824. The project beginning in February 1825. No snow. Do they get snow in that area? I don't know. The first step was the construction of a large shaft on the south bank at Rotherhithe, 150 feet back from the riverbank. Okay, so at this point, we're saying that there is a river bank. So they have already tamed the river, right? We're not saying that
natural riverbank where the water just carved itself out.
Okay. Okay. Maybe. Yeah. Maybe. It was dug by. Well, it would have to have been there because I mean, how are you gonna? It was dug by assembling an iron ring 50 feet in diameter above the ground. That's big. A brick wall 40 feet high and 3 feet thick was built on top of this.
Out of what?
Bricks. A brick wall. With a powerful steam engine surmounting it to drive the excavation's pumps. Notice how there's no uh there's no fuck, forgot what I was gonna say. Hang on a second. Sorry. Powerful steam engine surmounting it. There's no pictures. That's what I was gonna say. There's no pictures of any of this. I can't get to see what the fuck they're talking about. The whole apparatus was estimated to weigh 1,000 long tons. The long ton, also known as the imperial ton or displacement ton, is a measurement unit equal to 2,240 pounds.
So why don't you just fucking say that? And it's not like that's an
Well,
even number to.
right, because a ton is 2,000 pounds, so a long ton is
What's the point? That's so dumb.
a long ton is again. How did we even get to like who decided that? Okay, 2,240 pounds exactly. That's a long ton. Why wouldn't they say 2,250 pounds? That would be so much easier mathematically. What is the necessity?
2,200 pounds.
Right, but what's the necessity of having it be the 40?
Stupid.
All right, so that's so instead of so again, but why not just say so if it's let's say it's a thousand, how many was it, 1,000 long tons to weigh 1,000 long tons, so that is 2,240 pounds. Again, why not just make it tons? Why not just say it's
Right.
like 3 million tons instead?
Just dumb. Just dumb. It's to confuse people, make people feel stupid. You know, so they're more likely to believe your yada yada. You know, that's all. I covered her and she went bad and I laughed.
Um. All right, so we're going back. I'm not. So this thing that was invented and then the whole apparatus, this and I still don't even understand. It was dug by assembling a wrought iron, an iron ring 50 feet in diameter above the ground. I don't understand that. And then that thing weighed 2,240,000 pounds. And they could they move this thing?
That's what I'm saying. How'd they move it? Bunches of donkeys on rail cars?
The soil below the ring's sharp lower edge was removed manually by Brunel's workers.
Wow.
The whole shaft thus gradually sank under its own weight, slicing through the ground like a pastry cutter.
Okay, but what about in between, in the middle?
But that's not how the ground works. What do you mean? They dug away underneath it and it slowly sank in. Well, that's not how that what?
Well, if it
That's
weighs
not.
that much.
No, that doesn't make any sense.
But again, what about in the middle of the ring? All of that earth. Well, did Did they have shovels real quick? And they're
I
pulling it
guess.
out over the edge of the thing. How tall was it?
The
Like how
shaft
far?
became stuck at one point during its sinking, as the pressure of the earth around it held it firmly in position.
Right. Of course.
Extra weight was required to make it continue its descent.
Jump on it. Everybody get on the edge.
50,000 bricks were added as temporary weights. I want to know who the brick making companies were back then. You never, ever, ever, ever hear about that. Who are these companies that are producing bricks and then shipping them all over the fucking world?
What had happened was they found a dragon's lair, and there were all these rectangle pieces of stone that they then called bricks, and they just kept pulling them out of there. It's part of a dragon's hoard. The dragons use their fire that they breathe to make the bricks as they are digging their caves out. And then they just pile them up amongst their gold and jewels. And then the people came in and slayed the dragon, and they found the bricks.
No.
So then they enslaved other dragons to continue to use their fire to make more bricks.
It was realized that the problem was caused because the shaft's sides were parallel. Years later, when the wrapping shaft was built, it was slightly wider at the bottom than the top. This non-cylindrical tapering design ensured it did not get stuck. By November 1825, the Rotherthine shaft was in place and tunneling work could begin. Again, notice how they just, like, they create this one thing that they give you all these kind of details about so that you think you have details, but it's really a yada yada situation. Because, like, you heard her. It's not like she went, oh, no, that makes sense. A scale model of the tunneling shield at the Brunel Museum in Rotherhithe. So he's got his own museum.
Well, yeah. You have a tunnel shield, for God's sake. What the fuck?
Oh, you gotta be fucking kidding me. You gotta be fucking kidding me. That's ridiculous.
It was definitely mutual. Their relationship was built on a lie about who Tony was. So it ended badly.
So they added all of those bricks. Like
Look at the little people pushing at the bottom. Must have been on wheels.
Are they pushing or are they?
Come on.
Oh my God! It's not a real person.
No, those
It's
are
an army guy.
It's a scale model, right? It's a scale model of it. So apparently they're like pushing.
I don't know what.
This is.
I think they're adding bricks.
They're not. No, that's the tunnel. That's what the tunnel is. That thing is the shield, I think. That's the shield, and then that's the earth.
To weigh it down more, right? I don't know.
I don't know.
It doesn't make
It's
sense.
dumb. The tunneling shield, built at Henry Maudsley Lambeth Works and assembled in the Rotherhithe shaft, was the key to Brunel's construction of the Thames Tunnel. The Illustrated London News described blah, 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 blah. I'm not reading anymore. Yeah. She's got to go, so she's taking her phone. I'm going to go because I'm done. So, don't forget to get your free download, www.the-builder-group.com, BILDERBERG-group.com. It's free. Put zero in the payment box or put $200 if you want to. It's well worth it. You have tons and tons of songs that you have access to. So, might want to go check it out. All we ask that you share it with someone, though, again, you can put money in there. There'll also be a link to our Facebook page. Just go check the shit out, man. That's all we ask. And that and pedophiles, kill yourself.